All right, you are welcome back to this Zyxel Firewall setup. In the last time, we did set up internet connection in this device, and today we are going to take a look at the different features that this firewall comes with. So let's jump into the firewall. Already I logged in into the firewall and I've put in my credentials. And so what we do is come down here. So you could see, obviously this is maintenance. This is where you come uh, schedule a backup, go to firmware management. This is where you try to check if there's a newer firmware. Currently, I'm running version 5, verse 36 of the firmware. All right, so that's maintenance, and here is the big deal. This is configuration. Here is monitor, and here is quick setup. Then, of course, you want to see a high overview of what is going on in the box, so you go to dashboard. So for now, we'll be focusing on configuration. Click on configuration, and this is the interface of different features that is configurable within this firewall. So starting up from the licensing, you can see that already this device is registered as we did in the last video. I've got to go to my portal.myzyxel.com to register the device if you've not done so. Signature update, we've also updated the signatures because this firewall has got anti-malware capabilities, application control capabilities, as well as intrusion prevention system. So if you any of this is not up to date, so you could see this is 24th of June was the last time I updated the signatures here. So all we need to do is click on this and it's going to check, connect to the update server and try to see if there is new signatures to either anti-malware, application control, as well as intrusion prevention. So once it has successfully connected to the update server, it's going to get a new signature. If there's no new signature, then it's going to tell you that the signature that you have is the latest signature. So once the check is complete, so it tells us here the app signature are up to date and it was success, right? So you just click OK here. And that's what we got here under licensing and signatures. Then we have wireless. So if you've got Zyxel access points and then you want to centralize the management of this access point through your firewall, that's what here is all about. So the firewall can act as a wireless LAN controller. So under the controller, by default is on manual. So it means that you will have to add your Zyxel access point to this firewall manually. But if you put it on always accept, it means that once a Zyxel access point is connected to one of your switches on your LAN, it's going to be registered on this firewall automatically. So for now, once again, I've got no Zyxel access point. You could also configure rogue access points parameters so that the firewall will help you to detect rogue access points on your network. That is unofficial access point, probably access point plugged into your network by your staff without the approval of IT. Can also monitor the health of this access point. By the way, under the AP management here, you could create access point policy, and the policies we configure here could be pushed out to all the access points we have on the network. Could also create a group and add all those access points to the specific group, and then we can also update the firmware of the various access points that we have on the network. So once we download the firmware, renew the firmware, the firewall from here is going to push out the firmware to all the access points that were mounted in our network, as long as these access points are made by Zyxel. All right, so those are the overview of the wireless. Then here network, this is basically where we do a whole lot of stuff. So if you go to interface, you're going to see the different ports we have on the firewall. And if you want to configure any of those ports, we'll have to go to Ethernet, then port configuration. These guys support point-to-point protocol. It also supports cellular, so you could have a USB dongle connected to the USB port of the firewall, and you have data subscription on that USB dongle, and so your firewall could connect to the internet using cellular connection. Tunnels could be created in this firewall, and we can also do VLAN, can also bridge the different ports on the firewall. A virtual tunnel interface is also supported, as well as trunking. And so if you go to Ethernet, then we'll take a look at the different ports we have and the IP addresses that have been configured on them. So we have this port grouped, and we have LAN 1 and LAN 2, as well as DMZ, and then the 1 is the one connecting me to the ISP. So these are basically what we have here. So then you have to Ethernet, and this way we can make changes. For instance, the LAN 1 can go to edit, and it opens up all the configuration parameters within that port. Okay, so that's basically this my LAN interface, the port number 2 on the firewall that connects me to my 2960 switch that I have on the LAN. And you see a host of other configuration options we have here. Is acting as a DHCP server, and the starting IP address is from 1.33, which obviously is the IP that my laptop I'm using for this recording has been given by the firewall. All right, so those are things we do under the interface, and this guy is a firewall, so it supports routing. So we could do policy-based routing as well as static routing, and then dynamic routing, they are not left off. We have routing information protocol, RIP, then we have open shortest path first, which is OSPF. There's also border gateway protocol, BGP. You notice one routing protocol missing here is EIGRP. This Zyxel Firewall, of course, is not a Cisco product, and yeah, so non-Cisco devices don't support EIGRP routing protocol. Okay, so we also have dynamic DNS, we have NAT, where we configure a policy so that devices on our network with private IP addresses will be able to use the firewall's public IP to browse the internet. And redirect service, this is application layer gateway. If you have IP phones on the network, you can create a SIP configuration here. We can also do IP to MAC binding of all the systems we have. So a host of options we have under the network. Now, under the VPN, we could set up IPsec VPN, SSL VPN, L2TP VPN, and then there is remote AP VPN. So all sorts of VPN, site to site, as well as remote access VPN supported by this box. We have BWM here, global settings. So this is about bandwidth management, right? So bandwidth management, especially in an environment where you've got data traffic, which is your browsing data, your internet traffic, people getting to maybe facebook.com or sending mail within the network. Those are HTTP traffic, and then as well as HTTPS, or you could have IP phones on your network, and these are voice traffics. And then you have to configure bandwidth management so that your voice traffic as well as your data traffic will be able to coexist within the network without having any form of unnecessary delay. And that is bandwidth management here. We also have web authentication, and so you could even set up Facebook Wi-Fi here, captive portal, hotspots, and all that. So this firewall support it. Then this is the real deal here, security policy. And here we can go to policy control. And under the policy control, this is where we define certain movement in and out of the firewall. So if you want anything within the LAN to be able to go to anywhere on the internet, this is the policy that is making that happen. So you could see LAN 1 outgoing, LAN 2, which is the next port on the LAN. I'm not actually doing anything there. My 2960 switch is connected to LAN 1 port. So we have policy that allow traffic from DMZ to get to the internet. We have policy that allow VPN users to connect to the firewall. And if you do not define policy, then there is no traffic will pass. So if you click on add new policy, you're going to give the policy a name, going to give a description. So you might say, okay, any traffic coming from the LAN and destination is 1. Okay, so where is 1 here? 1, that means that people on the internet within the LAN should be able to browse to the internet. Source can be anywhere within the LAN. Destination can be anywhere on the internet. Service that they are allowed to use can be any service, but you can also customize it. Schedule, we can put a particular time and day that they are allowed to browse to the internet. Then action should be allowed. Okay, so that's how you create a policy to allow traffic from the LAN to go out so that your LAN users will be able to browse the internet. Okay, so that's under security policy, policy control. And then here we have ADP. So ADP is anomaly detection and prevention. So we could create a profile. So I think I've got a profile here, ADP profile. and we can add a new profile. So can just put it to all. And what ADP is actually helping us to do is some activities on the network. Let's call it illegal activities like port scanning. So you see all sorts of port scan, both TCP and UDP port scan. There is also ping sweep. So somebody can actually use a ping sweep to simulate a denial of service attack. So all sorts of scanning. Some people might have Wireshark or have other tools they use to run scan. If that scan is not approved by the IT department, then the firewall is going to block it. So that's anomaly detection. So you create a profile and specify what kind of actions, tensor scanning that you want to allow, ICMP flood, IP flood, TCP flood, etc. All right, so that's what we have under the ADP. And here we have session control. Okay, we can enable session control. This is about setting parameters. For instance, if I click on ads, we'll put a description, we'll put a particular user with a specific user, as the case may be. Session limit is 0, which means that anybody that is connected through the firewall getting to the internet, there is no limit, there is no session timeout. The person will always be connected, except the person decides to call it a day and leave the office. So we can also configure session control. So if somebody have browsing time of like 4 hours, 8 hours, and all that, and once that time elapses, the person will have no network access. Okay, so that's found under security policy. But then the real meat of this firewall is found under the security service. This is app control, right? And basically here we can create a profile and application control profile. So there are all sorts of applications that you can block. So we have antivirus, have middleware, gaming, and what have you. So if we go to web, let's look at tunneling. So let's say, for instance, I select tunneling. So by the way, we can give this application control policy a name and then put a description here. And what do we mean by tunneling? So if you scroll down, you see what we'll be able to block. So all those VPN software that allow you to change your location, change your IP address, those things can be blocked. So you could see the action is forward, so they allow to pass through the firewall, but we can block a specific application here if we don't want anybody to use it within the network. So that's what we mean here. So you could see all sort of VPN, Opera VPN, Node VPN. So you see Node here. So I could select Node and I could drop the traffic. So that's what application control is all about here. And yeah, so once that is configured, come down here and save the settings, and then we have dropped that particular application on the network. Okay, so that's app control. I'm just going to cancel this out. We're going to have another tutorial where we'll be really looking at how to create a couple of these policies. But there is a default profile here, and if we just try to see what is in there, you're going to see certain application already blocked by default from this firewall. So you can see action is dropped, not forward. Things like Tor2 Web, a host of other application that is already configured not to pass through the firewall. So Opera VPN, Sky VPN, Hot VPN, Hideman, and all that, LogMeIn. So all this application can be used from this network. So let's cancel out of here, and content filter, that is about blocking websites. And there are a host of websites you can block here. So these are the policies already created in the firewall. This one is named Business Productivity Protection. So you can click on Add and create your own policy, give it a name, give it a description, make sure that you enable content filter category service, and you can log all these things, but just know that logging all traffic is additional load to the firewall. So you can select which kind of website you want to block. So we have all sorts here, consumer protection, cults, occult, so many things here. So scroll down, dating, social media, social networking sites, blogs, wiki. here job search, media downloads. The option is up to you on what is allowed. If you already have a policy statement in your environment, then that will give you an overview of what should be allowed and what should not be allowed, which websites users are not allowed to access. Okay, and that's content filter anti-malware. We can also configure anti-malware. So come to advanced, so you could see certain files that we want the malware to scan. So there are file types. You can see the ones that we are scanning are all executable files, all .doc, all .pdf, .rtf, .zip. So if any of our employees on the network is downloading any type of this file from the internet, it's going to be scanned by this firewall to see if they have malware. There are other extensions you could add, AVI, .mp4, .jpeg, all of these could be moved to this side. And it means that any attachment that has any of these extensions will be scanned to see if they have malware. Okay, so there is reputation filter, there is also intrusion prevention system, email security, SSL inspection, etc., etc. So a host of services under security services. Objects, this is where we can create a lot of things. Zones here, you see this is where we defined which ports on the firewall should belong to LAN, which port on the firewall should belong to WAN, which port on the firewall should belong to DMZ. So this is where you add all your zones, give the zone a name, WAN, and you see available ports, then you make any of the port a member of that zone. So I've actually, all the ports have been allocated to different zones and we don't have any port left. We can create a AP profile, we can create users and groups, so that sometimes you can even integrate this guy with your Active Directory. So instead of creating users and groups here, you could also tell this firewall to talk to your Active Directory server, and all the users and groups already have in the Active Directory will be imported into this firewall. Okay, so a host of configuration options are available in this box. So apart from creating users, we can also create groups. We can even go to settings and check some stuff. So we can allow renewing this time automatically. We can enable user idle detection. So if somebody has connected to this network and for a certain amount of time, the person has not been able to do anything, then the firewall is going to log that person out. Okay, so password must be changed so you probably have a password policy, maybe 90 days policy, which is 3 months. Everybody is expected to change their password, and it could also be 180 days, which is every 6 months. Enable password complexity requirements, so it means everyone, you can define what your minimum password is. So you can see 8 characters is recommended, then you can have uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and special characters. Okay, so those are the settings. So we can limit the number of simultaneous logon for administrator account, and limit the number of simultaneous logon for access account as well. All right, so account lockout is also here, so you can enable logon retry limit. So if you try maximum of five times, then you will be blocked. Okay, so we can possibly go through all the features we have under the objects here. Okay, now under the management and analysis here, we can go to our security reporter, our security manager, most importantly, Nebula. So if we want to add this device to Nebula so that we can manage it from the cloud, we just have to select the port, our one port that we'll be using to reach the firewall, and then we'll apply and go to Nebula. It takes a couple of minutes, like 5 to 10 minutes before the process is complete, and then we'll be using Nebula console, management console, to always log in to this firewall. All right, so that's management and analysis. And then under system here, we can change the host name of this firewall, can do all system related stuff, date and time, can enable SSH to this firewall. Of course, telnet should be disabled. We can enable FTP so that we'll be able to upload firmware to this firewall, can define our authentication server. Okay, so authentication server by default here is the Zyxel. Okay, so it's pretty much what we want to do in this particular video, and log and report. This way we can configure our log settings, put in the email address we want to be getting the logs alerts on. Okay, so if we go here, is either you set up your own email server or you point it to an existing email server. And that's pretty much what this review is all about. And in the next tutorial, we are going to go ahead. We'll be focusing mostly on the security service. So we're going to configure application filter or application patrol, as it's called here. We'll go ahead and do website blocking, that is content filter. We'll also go and fine tune IPS and see how we can set up intrusion prevention system on this firewall. I hope you benefited from these lessons. Thank you for watching. See you in our next video.